courageous friends, and welcome to the Tell Me Why show by Madex. This is our very first episode, and we wanted to answer 3 questions for you.
Question number 1. Why did we pick character Mad and character X for our branding, together called Madex? Why them?
Question number 2. Why did we decide to start this show? Why us?
And question number 3. Why should you watch this show? Why you?
But before we get started, we wanted to introduce Mr. Mad and Miss X.
Mad was born in an unfortunate environment. Since childhood, he was surrounded by unfair experiences. He was never treated equally, nor was he really welcome into his own life. He learned about pain and suffering from a very, very early young age and was never really given the chance to love. He didn't have the opportunity to feel love, express love, be loved. He was different. He felt different. Ultimately, due to a series of painful events and losses that he experienced, our Mr. Mad transformed into a man who numbed pain. He lost hope on humanity and ended up hating order and systems because of all the many injustices that he had endured. He believed rules make people conform and fall into a system. In his eyes, people were acting in their everyday lives to be someone who they were not, for the good of nature, to avoid their true nature. So Matt decided to also mask his pain, and by just showing that how powerful he is and becoming the only chaotic person in the society. He was somewhat successful in masking his pain, but like many of us, he had fear of being forgotten. He wanted the history to remember his chaos. In his alone time, like many of us, he really wanted love and connection. He wanted to be given another chance, and that's when Miss X made her life into Matt's life and gave him one more chance. So now who is Miss X?
Miss X was born from a tiny baby's first laugh and a little white dandelion seed on a magical island called Everland. Miss X's talents were different from the other fairies' natural abilities. The fairies in Everland had their own special superpowers. Some could control light, others could control water, some could bring love, and others could welcome summer. In the beginning, Miss X couldn't understand why she was so different. She wanted to be like the other fairies, but she wasn't able to see how her creative problem solving and her inventive abilities were so unique. So she feared that she might not be worthy enough. Without hesitation, Miss X made it her mission to be like everyone else, to stand in, to feel important. But she failed miserably in attempting to master the other fairies' superpowers because it wasn't in her nature. Feeling more lost than ever and alienated, she was fortunate enough to be surrounded by a support system who reminded her to be proud of her powers and to dare to be different. You see, Everland was built on love and encouraged love, and Miss X had the rare ability to see and accept her superpower as a creative innovator. Over time, she utilized her magic, and she brought light and prosperity to Everland. Miss X was proud of her roots. The more she embraced her magic, the more she realized that being different is powerful. Everland needed Miss X to thrive, and she chose to master her individuality.
So, why did we choose Mr. Mad and Miss X to be part of our branding? Why? We wanted to remind you that, number 1, we all have darkness and light within us, like Mad and X. Like all other energies, fire, water, air, which can give life and can take life. Depending on the circumstances that we are, the environment that we are, the consciousness that we have, we choose our own path. Some of us fall into the Mad category and they are based on hate. Some of us fall into the Miss X category and they live based on love. But darkness and light does not define us. Our conscious choice is what that all matters.
That's right. And number 2, if you have burned a bridge and left it behind like Mr. Mad, you can move forward. You can build again. Nothing is fixed and nothing is permanent. There is always hope. Until the oxygen in our lungs, we can change, we can be free, we can have love, and we can give love.
Number 3, Every single one of us have fears like Madex, fear of not being accepted, fear of being rejected, fear of not being important, making an impact, having family, having kids. But regardless of who we are, what we have done, who we have come, we all are searching for connection and love. And in order to sparkle love in our heart, we really need to face our fear. That's something that we don't talk about on a daily basis of our life.
No.
We don't talk about fear. So in this show, we want to welcome fear. Our guests, ourselves, we are going to talk about our fear, about the unspoken fears of life, and welcome love in our life.
Earlier we asked you, why us? Why did we decide to do this show? Why don't we give a little backstory, shall we?
My name is Madex, and I have never been what others really expect. Originally born in a small town in northeast Iran, my life story should have been written for me, ending safely and predictably. But I decided to choose a different path. My adventurous journey began in India at the age of 19 and continued to Malaysia, Italy, England, and now the USA. Throughout my life journey, I identified many aspects of me, and I changed and transformed many parts of me. And I did that by learning about my fears, challenging and overcoming them. So why am I passionate about this show? In 2021, I recognized that throughout my life, I have learned a lesson or two about love, life, happiness, pain, suffering, but I haven't been able to master my fears. I still fall victim to my fears. And I don't understand why. I am filled with a good amount of conflict. Part of me knows that my happiness and fulfillment comes from the routine. Part of me thinks that my happiness comes from outside me. If I do that next thing, if I achieve that next thing, if I buy that next thing, then I will be happy and fulfilled. I question or judge myself, if not 1,000 times a day and multiple times a day. And this misery prolongs sometimes for a few minutes, sometimes for a few days, few hours. It's like a never-ending war. So I started asking myself, why do I feel this way? Is something wrong with me that I'm constantly judging myself, questioning myself? After all the self-love work that I do for myself, I wake up at 3:30 in the morning, I journal, I meditate, I go for a walk, I listen to motivational videos. Basically, I follow what the spiritual leaders, successful books, successful leaders are suggesting. But none of them are really working for me. I still fall victim to my fears. So I taught myself that there should be something wrong, something that is missing, something that I'm not understanding. So I started asking my friends and family that how do they feel on a daily basis? Do they fall victim into their fears? With the amount of the information that we have in today's world, all the success book that we have, why do we judge ourselves? And here is what I reached the conclusion. We all are living in such a toxic environment every day from everywhere, all social media, TV, the advertisement, they are injecting poison to our brain. We all have become a victim of thinking that the materialistic life is the only life that matters and our happiness is outside us. It's not only me alone. The moment we open our eyes, we are thinking about what did my cousin do, what did my friend do, what did my coworker do. So we all are toxic. Number 2, we don't talk about our fears. When was the last time you were in an event that you said to your friend or to your coworkers, today I just judge myself. I thought I'm the most terrible person in this world, that I don't deserve this job. We do not talk about our fears. We hide it. We all have it one way or another way, but we just hide it. I wonder, does Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, Oprah, Ellen DeGeneres, do they ever question themselves? Do they have fears? How often do they talk about their daily fears? And number 3, we do not ask questions of why. Why? Why do we want to do certain things in our life? Why do we want to get married? Why do we want to have child? Why do we don't need to buy that next house? Why do I want to buy that additional bags? We do not ask why. We just accept. And that is why I'm passionate about this show, because in this show, we are going to ask many, many why questions. And we are going to welcome fear. Fear and fear and fear.
And I've been asking myself, as Alex, why do we do the things we do in life? Since I was a child, since I was 7 years old. I grew up in a small town in Harmony, New Jersey. You might not know of it. You might know of it. Props for you if you do. But I was raised by a single parent, and she was always working, so I spent a lot of time being alone. And when I was alone, I started exploring my imagination and creating characters for myself because I had no one to talk to. So I would create this character, that character, I would watch films, I would look up different types of plays, and I was only 8 years old, right? And I started to develop impersonations. Jim Carrey, Robert De Niro, Julia Roberts, Sandra Bullock, all these actors that were big in the 90s, I started emulating them, the way they moved, their gestures, the way that they walked, right? And one day I went to school and I did an impression of Jim Carrey, probably from The Mask, the movie The Mask. And everyone around me started laughing. And I realized that there was this joy that I felt inside of me, this reward that I had never experienced before. And I wanted to have it again. I didn't understand what it was, but I knew that it was something inside of me that was unique. And throughout my life, for the past 30 years, I have been that person who has just made people laugh. But while doing that, I still question myself every day. I wake up in the morning and I have fears, like Jim Carrey, like Ellen DeGeneres, like Robert De Niro, all these successful people. They live their life having fears, just like you do as well. But we continue to wake up every day and we have an impact. We make an impact, whether it's the person next to us or it's 100,000 people. We make an impact. And we decided, Mathis and I created this show for you to be able to sit down and talk about your fears. And whether it's, something you want to accomplish or something you need to conquer, if you just want to talk about it, we don't go to events and say, hey, what are you going through today? We ask what your job is or, how much money you make. That type of atmosphere that we're creating is toxic. And we want to flip the coin on that. We want to be able to discuss these different types of fears with you. And we are beyond excited to get to know each and every one of you and just talk about what's going on in our lives.
And we are going to talk about daily fears. You will see with our guests, this is not going to be a show about success. This is not a show about blueprint to become the best influencers or earn this much money. This is a show that we are going to talk about fear.
It's raw.
How did you feel this morning? How many times did you think that your nose is not good, your eyes are not good, your hair doesn't look good, you are not good, you are not good, and not good? This is a show that we will welcome fear and overcome it together.
Stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen.
Mm-hmm.